Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with another reaction video. And today we're going to dive back into Rino because apparently if there's going to be a setup, like if I'm going to walk into a setup, I'm going to walk into it right wide open. And this apparently is going to bring the racist out. And so we're going to go ahead and deal with some stuff right off the top, just so that you know, I believe that God created every single person on the planet. I believe that we were knit and formed in the womb by His express demand. And so, whatever characteristic that you were born with is the characteristic that you were born with by His imminent, infinite design. And so, if you are judging somebody based upon the color of their skin, you are dumb. Regardless of what tone, pigment, or whatever else, you're dumb. Racism is stupid. And if you are judging someone based upon the melanin content of their skin, either an abundance of or a lack thereof, you are a racist. It does not matter which melanin level you personally have, you are still a racist because you are making judgment based upon race. Now, I personally don't believe that there are races. I believe that we are all one people created by one God. We have different purposes. We are not all aligned in the same direction, but we are all created purposefully by God. And so I wanted to put this out off the top. If you are a racist and you make decisions based off of melanin, you will not be happy on my channel. You should leave now. I do not appreciate racists at all. There have no time for that energy on this channel. Bye. Now, we're going to dive into the grand deception because this is something that I was tipped off that maybe I need to do. And I'm going to look into it because we're going to go ahead and knock these out. We're going to go ahead and get this out the way. Oh, I'm not going to hold back. If you're soft, this is probably not the place for you. Let's dig in and see what Rino has to say about the grand deception.
As we move forward, anytime you come closer to something, your vision should get clearer. Am I right? You are a tool in the hidden hand that's using you. Please don't be delusional. The rulers of this world practice confusing you. The people and the priests and the imams have been jammed by government scams, mind systematically programmed.
That's true. Your mind has been systematically programmed with a grand deception. I'm going to see what he says the grand deception is, and I'm going to tip you off at the end as to what I think the grand deception is. And then we'll see if they align.
Blatant black hatred and racism, the way they lace the whole world and nation with traces of... Don't be delusional. The rulers of this world practice confusing you. The people and the priests and the imams have been jammed by government scams, mind systematically programmed. Blatant black hatred and racism.
That's why I addressed this at the top of the video.
The way they lace the whole world and nation with traces of Satanism.
That right there is true too. You better be careful the things that you do, right? To a certain extent, yes, you are responsible for your society, but you are responsible for you. You are responsible for the decisions you make within that society. And if the society decides that that's okay, and you don't agree, you don't have to do that. You have to stand on the fact that you don't want to do that, whatever that decision may be, whether it's things or whatever it happens to be. You make your decision whether or not you want to go along with people, and you do that.
Places of pagan prison, the founding fathers enslaving intentions were no different than Bush's and Reagan's visions. 1776 it took action. This Illuminati took form and was spawned from a Colombian faction.
Okay, so that's the first time I've heard that particular conspiracy. I've heard a lot of different one-eyed conspiracies, but that's the first time I've heard a Colombian connection.
Took action. This Illuminati took form and was spawned from a Colombian faction.
So, if there is some source material for that, I am very interested in seeing it. That is the kind of stuff that I like to dig into. The fact that I have not ever heard that before is a little bit strange.
Just flip your $1 bill over. And if you want me to expose the true code of deception, I will show you. We live in a design wicked system. The number 13 is consistent in Masonic symbolism. It represents transformation. 12 completes a cycle, so 13 is rebirth and regeneration. The meanings of this.
Do you want to know why? We'll get into that at the end. I'll let you know why 12 is the meaning of rebirth and I'm going to tip you in on the end, if I remember. If not, I have a video on that. There is a cycle, and there's a reason why 12 and 13 are important numbers. And I know that a lot of people get tied up in this, thinking that the Masons are terrible, and they even this. Listen, y'all. Listen to what I'm telling you. Not everyone that is involved in a group is aware of everything that happens within a group. And it doesn't, like, I've talked often about the one mother father fallacy, right? The fact that it only takes one to get a conspiracy, right? People have a tendency to overthink the necessity of people. Right? They tend to think that in order for a grand conspiracy to be able to take place, that everybody involved in that has to be in on the conspiracy. And that is simply not true. If we take, for example, somebody who is in charge of the largest computer software company in the world, just by pure happenstance, the only person in that entire organization that has to be clued in, and we're talking about, tens of thousands of employees, right? The only person in that entire organization is the top. You only need one mother father in the organization in order to be able to do whatever you need to do, because he's going to tell this guy, you do this, and they're not going to question it. They're just going to do it. They don't need to know the motivations behind it. They just need to follow orders. And people are really good at that. That's that slave mentality that is inset into all of humanity from the beginning, because we have a choice to be subservient or to stand. All right, let's back it up.
Transformation. 12 completes a cycle, so 13 is rebirth and regeneration. The meanings of the symbol are strategically hid. On the left side, you see a 13-layered pyramid. Over that sits the all-seeing eye where the light shines. A sign of the devil watching over you at all times.
Okay, I didn't finish where I was going with that. Right. So, not everybody in the organization needs to be involved. And the people who are actually involved only involve those who they are certain will do what needs to be done. Right? If I am in charge of recruitment for a shadow organization, I am going to spend the time to vet before I even open the subject. Right? I'm going to make sure that you are invested in the same type of thing that I am invested in before I recruit you to my organization. That is just simple logic. Like, it does not take a great deal. Some of this symbology, yes. The fact that they have to tell you what they're doing, yes. The fact that there is dark, deep organizations doing, yes. But not everybody is involved, and not every symbol is part of it. That is not to say that what is on the back of here does not have symbolism. That is involved in that. That is true. What he's saying is true. But it's kind of twisted a little bit, right? Just a little bit. It is entirely possible, because these symbols, the symbol of this pyramid, and the symbol of this eye, and the symbol of these rays, and the symbol of the scroll, and the words on the pyramid, and the eagle, and all the things that it represents, the symbols themselves hold no power. Zero, zilch, nada, none. There is no power in any physical object ever. There is no power unless it is invested by a living person. Now, if the person involved had malintentions, then yes, it will be malintentioned. But we don't know that. We have no way of knowing that, and therefore we cannot be held responsible for it. You are only held responsible for the level of knowledge that you have already attained. You're not held responsible for the things of which you are ignorant. God does not work that way. He will expose you to the truth, and it is your choice to either accept the truth or to deny the truth. I had a whole lot of deny the truth on there yesterday. Probably going to have a good bit of it on here today. But not everything is a conspiracy, and that is coming from a conspiracy nut. You can go back through my stuff. I love conspiracies. I know most of them. I follow most of them. I don't believe nearly all of them, but I know about almost all of them. And so sometimes things are there and sometimes things aren't there. And this is one of those things that we're not too sure about. The fact that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness was secured by the people who made this symbology and who are represented on here tells you a lot about the intentions of the people. There can be two parts of an organization that are both secret, that are doing opposite ends in the same organization. Bear that in mind when you make these decisions about currency and pyramids and eyes. Right? Now, if they're out there and they're doing this and all of these things that we know, and they are giving these symbols their physical energy in public to tell you who they are, that's one thing. But if they're using mnemology, where it is a iconographic thing, that is not. There's a difference there. The intention here, while not necessarily good, there is a lot of nefarious wrapped up in this paper note that is not backed by gold. But that does not mean that the symbology on there is going to damn you to hell or anything like that.
See an eye where the light shines, a sign of the devil watching over you at all times.
And also, the all-seeing eye is the eye of God. Now, that does not mean that people who worship the opponent cannot see him as God and use the iconography for themselves. But the actuality of the situation is that the all-seeing, all-knowing eye is God. It has to be God because the only one who is all-seeing and all-knowing is God. The opponent is not all-seeing and all-knowing. He is not. He has been given a limited scope of powers here in order to battle against where we need to be, but he is not all-seeing, omnipotent. And to give him that power is to give him that power. And when you believe that this all-seeing eye absolutely has to represent Satan or Lucifer or whatever you personally happen to call him, then you are investing the power in that eye. That is what is happening. Your power of intention is going to that. You are choosing to walk down the spiral of choice in that. That is what is happening, whether you choose to accept that or not. Here is the truth. Let he who has ears hear.
With the words Anna with Coeptus, 13 letters meaning he has favored our undertakings. Will you accept this?
And again, I go back to who I believe that the divinity is and who I believe that the I is. And that to me, I am going to attribute to the people who fought for where we are the best of intentions, despite where they were culturally and what they may have believed because of the mindset of the times. Despite that, I'm going to assume that they are making their best effort because I am, and because the people that I know are. I do know people who are making the wrong choices. I do, but they tend to hide in the shadows. They don't tend to be the ones running. They tend to be the ones hiding and slinking, right? And so I don't believe that the Latin on the dollar bill is praising the opponent, because I refuse to believe that. I refuse to give that power to him. I refuse to cede my power that was invested in me at creation by the Creator to some light bearer who is bringing the wrong knowledge to people. I refuse. And the wrong knowledge, part of that is this division of races.
Or will you learn the science and ignore them? Under the pyramid you see Novus Ordo Seclorum. Translated, New Order of the World, or the New World Order. Authors and satanic fathers of mass slaughter.
And here's another one. That's a touch point, right? Because the order thing, that's a touch point for a lot of people, including myself. I don't get down with that. But there is the other way of looking at it too. You have to assume, if you're assuming the best of intentions and you're investing the energy into that it is the best of intentions, then you have to assume that they're talking about the fact that for the first time, men did not belong to other men. For the first time in history, you were no longer subservient to others. There was no king or emperor, there was no priest or priestess that you were subservient to, that you were a servant of, that you were enslaved to. And you can talk about whatever you want to about how different slavery is watered down. And that's dumb, because slavery is the history of mankind. It is the entirety and the normalcy. We are living in unnormal times. The times that we live in where we have relative civility is an anomaly in the entirety of history. Normally, the normal is war, destruction, and enslavement, pillaging, and non-consensual activities. That is the normal for the planet. That is this hell that we live in, the normal of it. And the fact that we live now in a period where you can walk down the streets without, unless you live in Chicago or LA or one of those cities, without the fear of being accosted and non-consensually assaulted or financially disabled, right? The fact that you can do that with a reasonable expectation is entirely because of this order that was newly imposed upon this continent. For the first time ever, you didn't have to ask somebody if you had to move. Like if you wanted to move to a new area, you didn't have to go and suck the Lord's stuff, right? You didn't have to go ask or give him your wife to have non-consensual activities with. Like for the first time ever. And so when you want to talk about the situation that they were in, they were breaking a mold and they were making it less. We've talked about that. Making it less. They couldn't fix it all the way. There was too much division from the enemy holding us back from making everyone free at the same time. It took us another 200 years to get things right. But you know what? In the grand scope of history, 200 years is an eye blink. It is. And it is terrible. I'm not by any means condoning any of the actions taken against anybody of any melanated level. I'm not condoning the actions of slavery in any manner. But it is a human nature to want to take things that do not belong to you. It is human nature that if you have, you defend it. But if someone else has and you don't, you want it. That is human nature. That is one of the sins. I've talked about that. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead and finish this out. I know this is getting long. I told you, I ain't holding back on this.
That you see on the right sits below 13 stars with a shield that has 13 stripes and an olive branch in its claws with 13 leaves, which is supposed to be in his talent to represent peace. But peace was always on a decrease. His other claw holds.
Like for real though, is peace on the decrease? Like I understand the oppressive argument, and I even agree and sympathize to a large degree. But to say that peace is on the decrease is to be so terribly ignorant of history, like completely ignorant of history. You have to be completely ignorant of everything that has ever happened on this planet to say that. You do.
13 arrows of war set to be released, and the letters at the bottom of the pyramid are fixed with the Roman numerals that equal 1776.
I wonder why.
United States of America exists in a deep devilish abyss with truth and paganism mixed. Every president that ever lived.
You have a choice whether or not you will participate in paganism or not. That is your choice. And for the grand majority of people out there that are professing Christians or Muslims or whatever, you don't even really understand your own rituals, your own celebrations. You really don't. And some of those are quite pagan.
They gather at Bohemian
including the one that's kicking off here soon. Maybe even now.
Where they bow down
Where you don't eat for a while.
before the owl. See, the owl is wise and sees through the darkness of night. And there's a small one on the dollar near the one on the top right. It ain't hard to understand this government was never for us. The eagle was based off of the Egyptian hawk Horus.
Yeah. Yeah, you should definitely investigate the deeper histories.
13 colonies who went to wicked sovereignty and made
Went to wicked sovereignty. How dare you rebel against your righteous masters? How dare you decide that you need freedom? What are you even thinking? You should be subservient to those appointed above you. What? What? Did I step on a toe there? Better have brought steel toes.
Egyptian hawk Horus. The 13 colonies who went to wicked sovereignty and made no apology for the obvious idolatry. Subconsciously, we follow the ways of the beast and pay homage to pagan gods when we say days of the week. Like Sunday, they worship the sun. Monday is moon day. Tyr, the god of war, was worshipped on Tuesday. Odin, the chief god, is who Wednesday is named for. Thursday is Thor's day, god of thunder, the mighty Thor. Friday was named after Frigga, notice the pattern. Saturday is the Roman god of agriculture, Saturn. Frigga was the goddess of love, the wife of Odin. The polytheistic theologies needed decoding. The rituals like trips across the sand as man takes. The skull and bones fraternity, the secret handshake for...
Now see, that stuff, that is real. There are those organizations out there doing nefarious things. But you cannot automatically assume that everybody involved in it is bad. Because then you are placing judgment that you are not entitled to place. You don't get to tell somebody what their intentions are unless they are obvious. Like, some people are just blissfully ignorant and they join these things and they have no clue for the entirety of their lives. And some of these organizations do enormous amounts of good. Some of them have dual, like I said before, there are two shadow organizations within the same organization.
Receives only 33 degrees. He secretly believes in Lucifer and other deities. Many powerful and rich people are controlled by these. They even hold the soul of several of your favorite MCs. Politicians telling lies, tongues riddled with thorns, and use hand gestures shaped in the form of devil horns. You don't feel it's any harm because you don't know what it entails.
There's a bunch of them. They do all kinds of symbology up there just to let you know where they stand.
Satan tampers with stem cells and sprays chemtrails. The so-called holidays are hypocrisy, established to use religious doctrines to commit annual robbery. Christmas split in half as Christ's Mass, the so-called birth of Jesus, where every home has glowing lights cast. Christ the Anointed One masked the birth celebration, but Jesus' birth was kept secret due to the situation. The king initiated a death plot, cause the Messiah was prophesied to rule, so Jesus' murder was authorized. No one knows the actual date, that's why sometimes you see Xmas. X means unknown, but ignorance affects us.
No, that's not what the X is. That's not. Like, how many toes do I have to step? I have to step on all the toes. I have to step on all the toes. So, your Christmas, right? First off, Christ had to have been born in the spring, right? The spring in the northern hemisphere. It had to have been. There's biblical evidence for that. I'm not going to get into it. We will get into it in the Bible study eventually because we'll get there. But it had to have been in the spring. So, yes, the date is wrong. We talked yesterday about how it was not the 33 and a half. Like, there's no biblical evidence for that. I looked. I couldn't find anything. So, if you have something that shows that he was actually 33 and a half years old, drop it in the comments and let me know. But I don't believe it because I haven't seen it. There is plenty of speculation about that, but we're not going to get into the speculation. Then, hold on. Let me back up. Okay, so at Christmas, that's what it was. This Christmas and Xmas. The Christmas celebration almost entirely is pagan. The bringing of the tree into your house and decorating it with lights is one of the few things expressly outlawed to the people in celebration right? You are specifically told not to do that. We talked yesterday about the eggs and Ishtar. That is where Easter comes from. So the overlay of the pagan holidays is a real thing. It is something that was done to subvert, right? In order to make people comply because of the grand deception.
No one knows the actual date. That's why sometimes you see Xmas. X means unknown, but ignorance.
And the X just means Christ. It is literally the Greek letter for Christ. Like the Greek representation for Christ is an X. That's what the X is for. It's because people didn't want to say Christ because they're dumb. That's what the X is for. It's not unknown. It's not unknown. It's not unknown.
Texas, a fraud that was purposely flawed. December 25th, the birthday of the wicked ruler Nimrod. His whole disguise is part of Satan's universe.
And again, if you have evidence for that, there's a lot of speculation on that, but I haven't seen any solid evidence on that. There was celebrations, like there's plenty of reason why we use midwinter as a turning point, right? As a celebration of the new life coming. There's a reason why we do that in midwinter.
The first arrives, a holy prophet's life being pimped and commercialized.
Now that I have a severe problem with too. The commercialization of our holy days. There was something about a temple and some money changers.
Traditions like lights on trees, rooted in the Nicene Council in 325 AD.
No, it's older than that. I think it's in Leviticus. We're going to get to it. But like it literally tells you not to bring the trees and decorate it in lights. That is quite significantly earlier than that. Way before Nicaea. Way before Nicaea. Way before Christ. Like back in the days of Moses. That's when this law came down.
By Constantine, these matters were decreed. The concept of a virgin birth was actually conceived and then agreed with.
Okay, so the overlay happened then. Truth. But that is, well, I say truth. I am not by any means able to support that by documentation, right? There are plenty of reason to believe that they thought that there was a virgin birth. There's plenty of reason to believe that they didn't think there was a virgin birth. There's plenty of reason to believe that the grand deception affects all things.
Graven images in the temple. The fish on your car is called Onus, a Babylonian symbol. It's visibly contradictory. Telling your children lies, you need to make them study Santa Claus' sick history. But yet we go wherever Satan leads us. The falsehoods we practice in his name ain't got nothing to do with Jesus. Yeah.
That's true. That is true. That is true. All right, so I did not actually see what he's saying the grand deception is. So maybe y'all can clue me in on that. But maybe he's talking about the founding of the United States as the grand deception. Maybe he's talking about that our holidays are the grand deception. Maybe he's talking about all of it's the grand deception. But I'm going to tip you in. If you're along this far, then maybe you've got your steel toes on, but you better have all your PPE on for this one. Because if you have not been following my Genesis Bible study, this may come as a shock to you, but the entirety of the Bible is the deception. The entirety of there is a chosen people is the deception. The entirety of history is only 6,000 years old is the deception. The entirety of man needs a redemption through sacrifice is the deception. The entirety of everything in that book is based on a lie. When I say everything, I don't mean literally every line, right? But the overarching message is wrong. There is no chosen people. God created everyone. He has a chosen person, millions of them. They're the ones who do. They're the ones that do his work. The ones that go forward and proudly and boldly proclaim his name. The ones who go forward and show by their works his commandment. You know what his commandments were? His commandments were to love the Lord thy God with all of thy heart, soul, and mind. and love your neighbor as yourself. That is the sum of the law. It is plainly evident if you read the book as it is written, as I am doing in my Genesis study. And everything else outside of that message right there is wrong and a grand deception. So grand that even God's elect may believe that you require a sacrifice before God can possibly let you be forgiven. How much hubris is involved in the thought that in order for the creator of the universe to find it in himself to forgive his own creation, they have to sacrifice some more of his own creation? How much hubris is it to think that you can put a requirement on the Lord God Almighty that he did not put on himself? What is the hubris involved to say that God himself made a mistake when he created any single human on the planet? How dare you step on my God's toes? My God takes things very seriously. I know that people don't believe that. I know that people have a real big problem with that, especially since the things I say on this channel. And there's people out here who think that I should be accursed for the things I say, because I stand for the Lord God Almighty who created all things. And not a single created person ever on the history of the planet is worthy of reverence or idol worship. If you are holding a cross and you are praying to a cross, you are worshiping a cross. If you are holding a cross with a man on it and you're praying to the man on the cross, you are praying to a man. If you are holding a prophet in esteem and you are using his name as intercessory, you are praying to a prophet. And you are not in accordance with the will of the Lord God Almighty. Take that into your heart now. You can either accept it or you can drop it. That choice is up to you. You have the free will. But now you are accountable. Now you do have the knowledge. The only thing ever required for you to be forgiven for all of your sins, regardless of what they are, regardless of what you have done in your life, the only thing you have ever had to do was ask for it from him himself. There has never been an intercessory needed, ever. He told you that in Genesis and you didn't believe him, so he gave you Exodus so you could have some rules to live by. We're going to get into that. Now, I'm breaking it. Like, I'm not stepping, or I'm stepping on all the toes. I'm not pulling any punches. And if it is what it is, and if you get mad, that's because you are convicted. Because he is telling you that what I'm saying is true, and you just don't want to hear it. That's what's coming. That's what's happening. That's where we are. If you're living by the grand deception that melanin makes any difference in anything, you have a problem. You will be held accountable from now on for the racism that you espouse. If you believe that somebody was born in the wrong body, you are in contradiction to God. And he will hold you to account for that. If you believe any of these things, if you believe that anything other than love the Lord thy God with all of thy heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself, then you have a serious problem, and that cup will be used on you. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I thank you for the song because it was a great conversation starter. Like, we really stepped on toes on this one. Hopefully I don't get banned. We'll see how it winds up. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. You are perfect, whole, and complete, just the way that you are. And this has been pittstake. Peace.